truly believe in these larger-than-life figures, who do you think in today's roster would have actually made it back then, and why? So when I saw this question, one thing immediately came to mind, and that was in Stone Cold Steve Austin's book. I believe it was either Stone Cold's or Hulk Hogan's. Uh, Feel free to correct me in the comments section. I'll happily take that. One of them was traveling with the Wild Samoans, who back then were very much in character on the road still, because kayfabe was still very alive and real. And it was to a point where they were the characters. They didn't speak. They didn't interact, really. And that's one of the first things I think of when I think of, like, really being larger than life and just like lending yourself to a gimmick outside of just the ring. Now, of course, you can make the argument that nowadays a lot of people just their gimmicks kind of are just extensions of who they are. I mean, Cody Rhodes, he just cries more or less depending on if it's Cody Runnels or Cody Rhodes. Then you got other people like Jon Moxley or Chris Jericho who are just more exaggerated versions of themselves. But thinking back to that question, I like to think who could really, I guess, live the gimmick, I feel is like where I want to take this question. Now, as extreme as the Wild Samoans, but something to that nature. So one person that came to mind immediately was Obafemi down in NXT, or coming up to SmackDown now, I think. So Obafemi isn't like a gimmick per se, but he is a sort of larger than life person in terms of like actual size, the presence, the aura that he gives off. He feels like legitimate in those terms. And I think this question was more so who could have made it in the community, there's a better word for it, the landscape of back in the day. And I do think that, again, Obafemi is a good name for that. Samoa Joe, as well, is another name that comes to mind for people who, especially his TNA, I guess, version of himself, TNA ROH, he felt like he was just this legitimate guy he could actually contend. I mean, he is a genuine badass. Other people to that element, Minoru Suzuki come to mind, Katsuyori Shibata. It's a hard question, but I like hard questions. I like my first like genuine response video, both on TikTok and YouTube, wherever I post this, is something like this that really gets my mind moving. And not to sound like Undertaker talking about how everyone backstage is just playing video games nowadays or something like that, but it is very much a different environment from the days of even Haku and Bruiser Brody and all that, comparing that to now. There are some genuine people backstage who maybe what we're looking for here is who could fuck you up if you try to cross them, or who seem believable if you see them on the street. Stuff like that. This is kind of a rambling response, but I think it's at least a good jump start to this sort of conversation. I'd love to continue this, bounce off of it, crazy style, and like comment replies to this on TikTok or YouTube. So you tell me, viewer of the video, who do you think could cut it back in those days in terms of kayfabe, living this larger life character, living the gimmick.